All right. Hello, everybody. I am Nick Frontera, and this is the Hideout, episode 17, AI in the Metaverse. We're going to have an awesome panel today. We're just waiting for a couple more of our speakers to join in and hop on here, and then we will get started. But we are really excited to have everyone here. I see John here. John, really excited to have you here. Looking forward to this chat, and I think we're going to have Irreverent Labs. I see Mecha Fight Club out there. Looks like we might. There we go. We got him up here. So good to have you guys as well. And we're going to bring Santi up as well. And then I think we've got one more coming, but we could. I think we can get started if our third guest joins. We will get him up here. But until then, let's start with some introductions. So today we're going to be talking about a topic that has been, super popular, I think, as of late, with the advent of ChatGPT kind of taking over, the public eye. But those who are paying attention, I think, see this as just the tip of the iceberg, and we've got both we've got creators and we've got experts on this panel who have been working with AI for many years now. So we're gonna get to dive in on all of these themes. But just a quick introduction of myself. So I am Nick Frontera. I am the CEO of Apollo Entertainment and the project lead of Satoshiverse. I've been in the NFT and Metaverse space for roughly the last 6 years now, working in consulting and now running and developing the Satoshiverse. So I've always been a fan of AI, but I can't claim expertise myself personally. That's why we have an awesome panel here today. But so for those of you who don't know about the Satoshiverse is a blockchain superhero universe. We're building a video game in Unreal Engine 5 that is kind of taking advantage of, kind of the best in game development technology and incorporating blockchain tech throughout. But we're also using some AI components within the game, and planning to scale that up, which is something that Santi will talk about a little bit later. But let's jump right into the introductions of our panel. So, John, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're building at NeoSwap?
All right, well, thanks, and nice to be here. So, yeah, I'm John Ennis. I am the CEO of NeoSwap. I'm a PhD mathematician. I did my postdoc in computational neuroscience, actually in the early 2000s, back when we were coding neural networks so we could understand people better. Now it's kind of the other way around. Then I went into market research consulting, and I founded about 4 years ago Igora, which is an enterprise AI services business that works with food and beverage companies, CPG companies, to do kind of market research AI. But really, for a long time, I've been interested in the problem of multi-way trading, even going back to my childhood. And what NeoSwap does is NeoSwap uses AI to find best multi-way trades to predict what are good multi-way trades in groups. And so we have a whole suite of tools that we use. And I will share a tweet here that kind of explains what we do. Yeah, as soon as I'm having some difficulty loading this tweet, but yeah, we feel like the AI and Web3 are really soulmates, and as we get into this, we can talk about how I think AI and Web3 work together to create all sorts of new economic possibilities.
Awesome, and thank you so much for being here. I was kind of going through NeoSwap's webpage and some of your LinkedIn posts over the last couple days, reading up on what you've been up to, and it's fascinating the way you guys are approaching the idea of an exchange that uses AI. Well, not even an exchange, a swapping platform that uses AI to do things that will happen behind the scenes but seem like magic for us. So I'm really excited to dive in there. So we also have Irreverent Labs and Mecha Fight Club. Is it Raul that's there, or who do we have? Please introduce yourself.
Yeah, it's Rahul. Yeah, I'm Rahul Sood, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Irreverent Labs. Um, we are a venture-backed AI entertainment company. We my just a brief history. I've spent my entire career in gaming and entertainment, and I've had multiple companies that have been doing some pretty cutting edge stuff. My first gaming company got acquired by HP a long time ago, and it was a hardware PC gaming company. I spent like my entire life playing games, basically. Um, I had I was very deeply involved as the first and lead investor and head of strategy for a VR AR company called Vervana, which was acquired by Apple in 2017. Um, and most recently, I had esports betting company called Unicorn, which became the largest betting company on esports in the world and got acquired by Entain last year. I met my current business partner at Microsoft. We both started Microsoft Ventures together many years ago, and David, who's my partner, has spent most of his life in machine learning uh, and most of his academic career, or sorry, work career, I should say, in machine learning. And he heard about my company getting acquired in 2021, and he reached out to me to see what I was up to. And we just started riffing on ideas, and we came up with this concept for Irreverent Labs. And what we are is we're a company that's building tools to create animations using text and 2D images. And we're using those tools to create Mecha Fight Club. And Mecha Fight Club is a really neat game where it's a fighting game based in the future where every character in the game is an artificially intelligent NPC. So there's no user input in this game at all in terms of you controlling the characters. They control themselves. Um, they're kind of like Tamagotchis on crack, basically. Best way to explain it.
That's awesome, and what a impressive history you have building companies and always seemingly on the cutting edge. So that's really cool. I'm really excited to get into some of these topics with you. Spencer, why? Or actually, let's go to Santi. Santi, why don't you introduce yourself, and then we'll jump to Spencer and get into the questions.
Well, after these introductions, I feel a little bit less prepared. But I'm the art director of the Satoshiverse. We started. I started with Satoshiverse a couple of years ago, but before that, I was an architect, and I created a company also focused on AR and VR. And through time, it evolved into video games, and that's how we got integrated into the Satoshiverse, which, as most of you guys know, is like this awesome platform that we are building for gaming and for in general storytelling. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, and we'll get into some of the ways that we've already been using AI throughout the game, but there's some interesting stuff that we're just starting to talk about. But understanding, I think one of the cool things is going to be, especially with the type of work that you guys are doing at Irreverent, and understanding how some of the progress that are made by others within the space will be implementable within games like ours, and how I think there's going to be tons of synergies for the companies doing a lot of the development work on the AI front. So I'm excited to see, what comes and how we can incorporate it. But I guess before we jump in, Spencer, why don't you introduce yourself and then you can take us into the questions.
Sure. Yeah, my name is Spencer Vogel. I'll be hosting today and asking the questions. So yeah, I've been in the crypto space since 2017 and been working with Apollo Entertainment and the Satoshiverse for the past 18 months or so on the business and strategy side of things. Really excited to get into this discussion just because of how relevant this has been recently. So we're going to start off with a few questions to everyone on the panel. Then we'll move into some individual questions. So yeah, feel free to just jump in. But I think maybe Raul might be a good person to start us off for this first one. So the first question is, in what ways do you foresee AI impacting the NFT space and more specifically Web3 gaming?
So I guess I'll answer the NFT part, and then as far as Web3 gaming goes, like I just think of gaming as gaming in general. The Web3 part is really just about having a stake in the game somehow, some type of ownership potentially via an NFT potentially. So I I think great games are what makes a great game is it has to be fun and entertaining, and everything, all the technology and everything else is sort of in the background around it. How AI might affect NFTs is it's sort of like when we started Irreverent Labs, we said we're going to breathe life into art. And so we're not only creating these like handmade characters, these cocks and hens that fight in the coctagon, but we're kind of breathing life into them by imbuing them with their own kind of DNA, you could say. Um, and they, and the user has no idea what they're getting. I mean, they could get a like a really docile, bird that doesn't do much, or they could get an aggressive happy bird, or they could get a psychopath. Like they just don't know until they start interacting with it and start training it. And so I guess the to answer your question about NFTs, AI can bring a whole new element of behavior to NFTs. You can breathe life into them potentially. You can use generative art to create them, but I guess that's something that's been done many times, and I don't know if that's going to have like a long lasting effect for community building.
Yeah, John or Nick, you want to jump in?
Yeah, sure. So I would say, I mean, I agree with all that, but I would add that I think that the new, a big issue with NFTs is liquidity, where, it's one of the reasons why people hold off sometimes on buying NFTs. And I think that AI helps to find trades within groups that couldn't be found previously. And I think, if you go to just the NeoSwap page, you can go down and see lots and lots of trades that have happened that you would never find. And so I think you're going to have, because it's kind of indirect solution to the liquidity problem. And I think it's also going to lead to really interesting social experiences inside games and inside metaverses or virtual worlds, where groups of people get together. Like, if you think about it, people used to get together to have trading and social activity at the same place, right? Like the town square is where you had the market, and it's also where you had the fair. And with Web 2, those two things got completely divorced. And I think in Web 3, they're going to come back together. And I think you're going to see social trading events become very common. And I think that the games and virtual worlds are the places where that's really going to start.
Yeah, I think, and Senti could probably speak to this a little bit more, but from my perspective, having kind of come in through the metaverse side of things, um, I view AI as having a ton of potential for world building. The ability to adopt certain style profiles and then enhance. If we're building entire environments or spaces or worlds that are tailored to certain purposes, the amount of man hours that goes into that, just having artists do it manually is insane. So I think that AI assisted world building will be a very interesting use of this kind of next evolution of programmatic generation via AI, and I'd love to see how that's going to develop. I also think,
Yeah.
from what you were saying, John, it's really interesting the potential, the way that AI could potentially solve some of these barriers to entry really to the NFT space, because there's so many of them, and one of them is liquidity. And I think that thinking about the almost like a matchmaking service via AI for people who don't just want to like exit, right? It's not direct liquidity in that people are just trying to get ETH or whatever it may be, but for people who want to collect. So, kind of liquidity between similar interests and collectors, whether that's across collections or even within a collection, where someone wants to, quote unquote, trade an NFT. I think the idea of trading is so prevalent in the gaming industry and and in games in general, and it's something that we haven't, we've seen early attempts at it in the NFT space just for peer-to-peer trades, but this idea of using AI to make trading much more effective is really interesting to me.
Yeah, as far as world building goes, I just want to say that that's sort of the one thing that kind of drew us to building these tools. So when we started the company, we started building tools to create these animations for the game, so that creators we're building a creator economy within the game, so that creators could come in and create things. Like for example, you might want to describe your bird in a way you want to create a skin for it. So you can basically describe what you want for a skin, and we can create it for you. But we're starting with environments first. So these birds live in roosts, which is sort of like the first thing that you see when you open up the app. You see the place where the bird lives, and these roosts can be designed using AI, and that's kind of like the tools that we're building that will open up to the world. Um, and people can use it for other things. They don't have to use it for Mecha Fight Club, but they can use it for any type of game or any type of animation that they'd like to create. And originally, our plan was to make those tools available later, and then monetize the game first. But because of what's happened in the last year in the crypto market and that sort of thing, we're going to make the game free to play to start, to get people really using it and super interested. And we're going to monetize the tools first. So that's kind of like our approach to this. But at the end of the day, the creator economy, or getting more creators to use AI is in entertainment, is something that I believe is the future of this space. And it's really, really interesting to see what we can do with with what we're building. So
That's super cool. I love that. I think like Nick was saying, some of the things that we have been using within Satoshiverse to create worlds is tools like, I know that it has been done a ton of times before, but as a mid journey, just to get us going as a starting point, or even as a concept art, and from there start understanding what we want to import. So I think as a creator, AI is a fantastic tool to sort of democratize process that in the past were just for big teams, and for the first time we have the possibility of creating hundreds of thousands of assets in a couple of minutes, and populate the world in a very fast manner, even if we are just tens of artists. So I think that process, that 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 mechanization of or parameterization of processes to create art that is not only assistant, like it doesn't only work as an assistant tool, but also as a dynamic storytelling tool. So I don't know, in the future, I think we can personalize the world based on how a person behaved within the world, or if someone makes a choice within the world, you can sort of change the storyline and whatever comes based on that. So I think the future of AI in the game industry is more about storytelling and how we can personalize and custom fit each experience based on each individual or each person that uses the game.
If I can just add to that, I think personalization is one way that AI and Web3 work together extremely well, because in each person's wallet are their assets. There's like the whole point of Web3 is the individual ownership and sort of self-sovereignty. So you've got this great technology in blockchain for supporting kind of individual differences between people, and then you have this other great technology in AI for providing personalized experiences. So I think that is a strong area of overlap between the two technologies.
Awesome. So we're going to move on to our next question. And then, Nick, I'll have you start us off on this one since you've been so excited about this topic recently. So what are your thoughts on the rise in popularity of easy-to-use AI tools like ChatGPT and Midjourney?
I think that, from a business perspective, I think there's incredible efficiencies to be had from learning how to use these tools. I think that just having an easy interface to interact with, with a text-based AI like ChatGPT is making it much more accessible for people in different industries that may not have been as prone to AI enterprise solutions before. I think that for myself, for example, I was a lawyer before I started with all of this, and there was this kind of hesitance to really implement any kind of technology that would do our jobs for us, right? And I think that that's the wrong approach. I think that the more the difference between, I think, what people are used to seeing and things that where usually all the AI is built into the back end, and what we're seeing now where it's becoming very front facing, is that the concept that it's actually the machine doing all the work is much more front facing, and I think that scares people. I think people are worried about being replaced. I think people are worried that it may not do the same type of job, or it won't be able to apply certain ethical principles or whatnot. And I think there's a host of issues that we need to be cognizant of. But at the end of the day, we've been using technology to enhance our lives for hundreds of years. And I think for me, this is just the next evolution of that. So, from our perspective, wherever efficiencies can be gained through using I think that only enables us to push further in our other creative endeavors. And so, if we're using AI for concepting through Midjourney, and we have our concept artist who was a traditional artist starts to become more trained in using AI for concepts, that's going to allow him to generate maybe 50 to 100 times as many concepts as he would in the time it would take to generate one. And so through that, we're going to be able to create a better 3D model, a better environment, something that's more illustrative of the concept for the game. And I think that AI, one of the things it's going to do is help on iteration, and I think that when you're an artist and you're just doing things yourself, there's a lot of there's kind of a certain beauty in the human creation element. But when you're a team of 30 to 40 people and everybody has a role and you're all trying to come together for a specific purpose, I think that AI can really help close the gaps that exist between those different parts of the team and help you accomplish that purpose. So whether it's Midjourney for creative assets or ChatGPT for everything from better methods of spreading information, the ability to type up an article and then generate posts for 6 different social media platforms instantly, and be able to use those resources on other creative purposes. I think that there's just so many, and really we're just scratching the surface. Every day I see a new implementation that's making use of this technology on the back end and creating a better user interface so that people can do it. But what I really think ChatGPT and Midjourney are doing is bringing AI to the masses, and it's kind of the first time that I've been aware of a solution that really has the potential to make people start thinking truly about what this technology could do in the future.
Raul or John, do you have anything to add there?
Well, I would add a couple points. One is I would say that both ChatGPT and Midjourney are extremely inspirational. And at NeoSwap, we plan to have a text-based interface because, a lot of the modern AI is kind of wish fulfillment, where you state your wish and then the AI grants it to a large extent. You describe what you're looking for, you describe the sort of text you want to create, and the AI fulfills your wish. And we want to bring that to trading, where you would connect your wallet and the AI would look in your wallet, know a lot about you, make predictions. And you might say, okay, what trades do you have for me? Or you might say, what's the cheapest way I can get a board 8? And the AI says, well, if you're willing to give up your CryptoPunk and 3 ETH, then we get you a board 8 because it's going to broker this deal. So I think there's an inspirational aspect to these tools. And the other thing I would really second the point that we are not going to lose our jobs. Like across my two companies, I think I have 35 employees, something like that. Every one of them is more productive because of using these tools. So why would you fire an employee that's become more productive? That doesn't make any sense. We're just going to get more done. That's all that's going to happen. So we're all going to be a lot more productive and free to do the things that make us uniquely human. So I think a lot of the fear of AI is way overblown, and that we should all be embracing these tools as much as possible.
Yeah, I mean, I would mostly agree, although, to say that people aren't going to lose their jobs is probably being maybe a little optimistic. Because, like, if I was a writer, for example, I'd be a little concerned if, if my job was to produce like a volume of articles, sort of thing. Like, I think people who work at the New York Times are probably freaking out, which is why they, for months weren't writing about ChatGPT. But with that being said, these tools are exactly that. They're meant to turn one artist into 10, and really give them enough horsepower to do other things, to focus on things that matter, unique creation and that sort of thing. So that's how we're thinking about it. Although, as our tool gets better and better, which it's getting insanely better, we're wondering, how do we shift the creative team to work on things that enhance it? And that's sort of where we're going. But it is interesting to see how it helps artists. And yeah, there is this stigma that it's going to take over people's jobs. I don't know. Yeah, I can see that happening, in certain industries. I'd also
Well,
recommend.
no, you did, yeah.
Sorry.
Let me, to be clear, I just mean jobs will change. They'll have different jobs. That's
Yeah,
what I
yeah,
mean.
for
They're
for
not
sure.
going to have no jobs. Yeah, that's what I mean.
That's true. Hey, and by the way, I just saw Megan. I don't know if you all have seen it, but it's a pretty cool movie. You should check it out if you haven't seen it yet.
Well, I think something to keep in mind as well is that certain countries that I come from Colombia, so there's certain countries that probably are not as technified as the states or as first world countries, and so I do think that there's a big problem there in the sense that there's many people that which jobs might be replaced just because they won't have access to the AI tools that are being used to sort of replace them, or and so they are not going to become more technified or faster or whatever. I think they are going to be replaced because they are not going to have access to this stuff. So I do think that that's something to keep in mind.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good point. There are, even in the video game industry, there is so much outsourcing of basic tasks like prop design and, environmental design that may no longer get outsourced, right? May no longer get sent to, for example, Latin America, which has become kind of a hotbed for, AAA studios in the US and Europe to outsource a lot of the design and production work there. So I mean, I do think that that's a valid concern, and I mean, I think you're right, Rahul, that that it would be, I think, naive to think that jobs won't at least change, right? But I think that is probably a kind of a byproduct of any new technology, and especially when that's kind of a paradigm shifting technology. The internet changed retail forever, and people still have jobs, and it's you had with the engine and the cars. We went past horses and carriages, and drivers learned how to drive, and I think that it will be interesting because I don't think it's just AI. I think just technology in general is solving so many of the problems that we once had, and that jobs were created to solve. But I think, interestingly enough, at the same time, it is creating many new problems, and I think we may see a whole new generation of developers, right? For decades, it was very important to understand the mechanical components of a machine, because machines were just
Oh, did you just
bolts
go
and
on mute?
nuts. Oh, sorry, did you guys lose me?
I can
No,
still
I
hear
I
you.
can hear. I can hear.
Okay, cool. Let me know if I cut out, because every once in a while that'll happen to me. But yeah, so I guess what I was thinking was that it becomes more necessary to understand how machines work with AI, and we are starting to see, more and more of a tech savvy generation. I've got 8-year-old cousins who can move around an iPad way, way faster than I can, and understand how the apps work, and why certain things break, why certain things don't break, because they're so surrounded by it. And I think what AI, what augmented reality, what virtual reality, what the metaverse may do is really just be that next big paradigm shift in how we live our lives, and do business and interact with one another. But I mean, I'm confident that people will adapt, and jobs are created because problems exist, and I'm not sure that AI will be able to solve all of humanity's problems, and it may even create more. So I think that we may see just like you were both saying, just a change in how what people do for work, and what skills are favored over others, and it may be for the better. It may be more of a focus on intellect than brawn, and that may foster more equality among people. So you never know. It'll be interesting to see what direction things will go in, but I do believe there will be quite a bit of change over the next 5 years because of these systems that are being created.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. So we're going to move into some individual questions. The first one is to Raul. So you got into this a little bit in your intros, but maybe you can get into it to a little more detail. How is Reverent Labs using AI and machine learning to enhance gameplay in its game Mecha Fight Club? And maybe talk about some of the tooling that you've built as well.
Sure. The word gameplay is used historically to talk about the user controlling the game essentially with a controller or whatever. I think of it like sort of the future of entertainment, generally speaking. So we're using AI to make the to do a couple of things. Number one, we're using it to create individual characters within the game that all have their own individual personalities, which is pretty unique. Like if you can get a game where you own a character and you develop that character over time. It's kind of like Dungeons and Dragons in the old days, where you had an individual character, you named it, you've kind of built it up, you rolled some dice or that sort of thing. But in this case, using AI to train these characters. And the more time you spend with them, the happier they are, the better they fight, the more they, ultimately like the better they fight and win inside of the arena. And so we're basically using AI to create emotional connections between the players and the characters that get increasingly strong over time. And as a result of that, the characters become increasingly unique over time. So this idea that NFTs just have rarity is kind of a weird concept to me. Like you put a hat on one and a cigar on another, and it's more rare than another or whatever. I think that's nonsense. I think these characters as individuals become increasingly rare over time, or increasingly unique over time. So therefore, every character in the game is somewhat unique, right? Or somewhat rare, I should say. Because they're all individuals. So we're using AI to create these emotional bonds between the players and their characters by making the characters unique, and then we're using it to create these environments within the game itself. So creating actual animations using text and 2D images to create animations is a pretty novel concept, and it's hard, requires a ton of compute. Um, it has been our biggest challenge actually has been getting the GPUs to allocated to us to be able to handle the compute that we need. But we have a very good partnership with NVIDIA, and they have been just incredibly generous to us in helping us get this allocation that we need. And we're building our own kind of server farms to be able to support this compute. The cost of training is expensive. Like one round of training, for example, for us, and we're just a small company, but to do one round of training it's around $500,000 in cloud compute. But because we're setting up our own infrastructure, we save a lot of money doing it. But generally speaking, we're using AI for creators to create like as creator tools in our world, and for increasing uniqueness in the characters that we're building. The first tool that we're creating is a text animation tool, which will be ready for public beta sometime in like the April timeframe, we think, but we're just in the midst of building it now.
I mean, I think that's, it's interesting because I think, so many of these concepts have to be tested through the proof of concept. And it sounds like, what the game is almost a proof of concept and going to be extended upon.
That's exactly right. The game for us is a proof of concept for the tools that we're building at Irreverent Labs. And the game is like the ultimate proof of concept, because we're creating a game that's never been created before. So, but yeah, 100% spot
Yeah,
on.
and I mean, it just gets your mind going, right? And again, like when we think about, sure, it's going to be awesome to look at a screen and develop that emotional connection with an NPC or whatever it might be, but that underpinning is going to be so vital as the hardware really gets better, and we do get to engage in these more immersive experiences. And when we think about, the true idea, the Ready Player One, for example, idea of the metaverse and the ability to be in an immersive experience that's visually immersive, but then to have the AI backing those NPCs and everything. I think that's where my mind immediately goes when I'm listening to you talk about this. So I'm definitely excited. Count me in as someone who will be, watching closely as you roll out that beta and seeing if there's ways that we can enhance our content with it.
Awesome. So next question is going to be to John. So your company, NewSwap, operates at the intersection of AI, Web3, and I guess finance. What synergies do you see between the technologies on a large scale?
Well, yeah, I mentioned personalization, and I think that you're going to have personalized prices become much more commonplace in kind of Web3, supported by AI. And I think the other aspect, of overlap is search. I think that Web3 provides, it gives you an ability to search. You have all these great data for searching, and then once you know what to do, once you search for something, you find a trade, you can actually execute it with just the permission of the people involved. So, if you look, I pinned this tweet to the space. There's a multi-way trade that's there. That's just an example of, many sort of trades that can be found. What can happen is you have personalized prices and you have a multi-way trade that happens, and everyone has the experience that they're selling at a high price and buying at a low price. I mean, personalized prices in kind of Web 2 are a bit of a non-starter because they seem unfair, right? I mean, Uber has their surge pricing, which is sort of personalized pricing. But it really doesn't work if you're always passing through liquidity. But if you have a multi-way trade where everybody feels like they're getting a good deal because they're selling at a higher price than they would sell the item for, they're buying at a lower price, I think you have this new type of cooperative commerce that becomes possible. So I think that personalization and search are two big areas of overlap, and they create all sorts of new economic possibilities.
Awesome, thanks. Next question is to Santi. So you talked a little bit about how the Surgiverse has implemented AI into the game. So what are some of the plans for the future outside of what you guys done so far with the environments?
Yeah, so outside of like procedural content generation to sort of fill the world and to create this field of content world, we also would love to create a system, or this is maybe idealistic, but we would love to create a system where everything that or where I think AI is going in from the storytelling perspective in video games is sort of adding this edge of dynamism where each person's decision and the way that they interact with the world sort of changes changes the story and the world in real time. So I think from what we want to generate right now, I think it's just trying to experiment on how we can introduce this in a maybe in a simplistic manner for now. So it could be something like if we add for instance, characters that have dialogue, and we want to create a more dynamic way that they interact with the person. We want to sort of play with that, and I guess what I'm saying is that we're going to continue iterating on the idea on how to create storytelling through AI, and how to personalize experiences within our game.
Awesome. Very excited to see all the progress on that. So Nick, from the perspective of an IP attorney, what do you think the impact of AI will be on IP protection? Will content created by AI be attributed to the developer of the algorithm or to the individual who prompted it?
It's a really interesting question, and it's funny because I've been a little removed from the legal scene in the last several years when we've seen so much of the AI jurisprudence start to take place and then emerge. But I think recently we saw there was an artist who tried to register a 16-page comic book that was created through Midjourney. I think it was in September, and the Copyright Office gave them the registration, and then recently said that they were going to revoke it because they overlooked the AI component of it, which I think threw the legal AI scene into a whirl, because it was the first real commentary by the Copyright Office on what who it answered some of these questions of authorship. So there's principles that differ all around the world. So I think that's one of the things that makes it a very complex question. Trademark and copyright law oftentimes will differ depending on the jurisdiction you're in. But at least in the U.S., the law says that a copyright can't be registered if there has to be a human element to the creation. So the creation can be assisted by AI, but it can't be completely computer generated, or it's not registerable. I know that the court has rejected patent applications for systems that were created by AI. And so there has been this hesitance, I think, to attribute this idea of authorship to the AI. I think that one of the more salient issues right now that is being discussed by the courts is the idea of training AI, and whether or not the information used within the databases and those data sets that are used to train the AI should be considered fair use. And so oftentimes, I think one of the pushbacks on certain AI programs is that they don't necessarily only train on licensable products or licensable content. I think unfortunately there's kind of been this grayness in the law, and so I think a lot of companies have plowed forward, and without some sort of regulation or guidance, it's hard even for these startups that are putting together these programs to really know what the rules are. But I do think that there are certain arguments by creatives that are valid with their content being used to train AI, because oftentimes the output would pass the substantial similarity test. And so the 20-second version of how copyright law works is that you're looking at the two works compared to each other and seeing if they're substantially similar. And there certainly have been instances where AI produces work that's not altered enough from the original copyrighted work to pass that test. And then there are commercial uses of that work that come afterwards. And so right now the law is somewhat trying to figure out who's responsible, who would be liable in that sense. There's been some mixed jurisprudence, but it looks like that the courts are putting the blame on both parties, both the companies that are creating the AI and the companies that are, or the people that are commercializing the works, which I mean, to some extent for me makes sense. You know, if an AI, I think I feel differently about AI training data, right? Like what's being used than I feel about the outputs. I think AI companies are going to need to be more careful about the rights that they give to users, and making sure that if they are using certain copyrighted material in their training data, that the outputs are significantly changed enough from that data to be commercially usable, or just not grant commercial licenses to use that data. And I think that, or those content outputs, and I think that that's going to, you know, to change over time as we get more regulatory guidance. But I think that, you know, it's important that we talk about these things, because I think a lot of times when we get pushback, it's not because the creators of these AI companies have, you know, nefarious, you know, purposes. It's they're just trying to innovate. But I think sometimes the law just lags too far behind innovation, and unfortunately, you don't get regulations quick enough to really, you know, have a set of guidelines, and everything tends to be backwards looking in that case.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's how it is in the Web3 and crypto space too.
Definitely.
So next question is to Rahul. So what do you see as some of the biggest challenges or limitations preventing AI from reaching its full potential within gaming or just in general?
Well, a couple of things. Number one is access to GPUs. Believe it or not, it's a huge issue. You know, so compute is probably like a big problem for small companies who can't afford it, and or also get compute from places like AWS or Azure or that sort of thing. Number two is talent. You know, we've hired some pretty amazing people only because our CTO has written papers, and you know, and is well known within the circles at Microsoft and that sort of thing. We've been able to, you know, handpick and try and hire people, but it takes a long time to hire really, really good machine learning talent. It's expensive, and so that's a bit of a challenge. And the last thing I'd say about the space is, like, in any hot space, there's companies out there that, you know, will jump in the space and say, yeah, we're an AI company, but really they're not. They're using things like ChatGPT or whatever to kind of build a tool around it. They're not generally an AI company. They're using, you know, uh, someone else's kind of foundation to build a tool on top of it. So there's going to be a lot of hype in the space. You know, people raising money, that type of thing, on stories that may or may not be true. So you just have to be really careful about that. It kind of reminds me of the days where um, they used to have things like voicemail transcription and whatnot, supposedly done by machines, but it was really done by mechanical Turks. So you're probably going to see a lot of that type of hype cycle. So it's a bit of a hype cycle as well.
Got it. Thank you. So last individual question is going to be to John. So we've all seen dystopian movies like Terminator, where the end of the world begins with AI. As AI continues to be implemented more visibly into the mainstream public, how do you expect public sentiment to expect the public sentiment surrounding AI to evolve?
Mm-hmm. Well, what's interesting is I think this is related to the previous question, because I think this is one of the biggest barriers, one of the potential biggest stumbling blocks for AI going forward is misunderstanding by the public of what this technology will do in the long run. That AI is going to have a very positive effect. It's going to have a huge positive effect on wealth in the world. It's going to free people up from all sorts of rote tasks to do more productive, more interesting things. I think people are going to be much more able to do the things that they were put on earth to do, instead of, you know, well, for example, suppose if all of the McDonald's jobs were automated, I think that would be a net positive for humanity. I think people would then be free to go do other things that would be more useful. And, you know, plus the price of hamburgers would go down. So I think people need to not fear AI. And I think in the West, we have a problem, really going back to, you know, the Frankenstein story of fearing new technologies, or even, you know, the Luddites, where people, okay, jobs are changing. Well, we need to embrace the change. And I think that it doesn't help that sensational headlines get coverage and clicks and likes. There's a lot of fear that's used to drive engagement. And I think that it's important for thought leaders to really reassure people, no, it's going to be okay. Jobs are going to be more interesting. You're going to be more productive. You're going to have just more wealth in society, and we will all be better off. So I think that it's important that we take an optimistic perspective when we reassure people that these changes are going to be good for them in the long run. So that would be my take. I think that as much as like in school, we should be encouraging students to use ChatGPT. We shouldn't be forbidding it or banning it. I mean, it's like trying to fight the wind to try to stop these things from coming. We should embrace them, and through using these technologies, do more things that are uniquely human.
Nice. Definitely with you on that on school. I think there has to be limitations for sure, so that somebody can't just have the AI do everything for them. But I think training kids to be able to learn how to prompt the AI in the right way to be able to be more productive is a great solution. I definitely don't think we should be discouraging that. So one of the things we do every week on the space is we do a giveaway. So we're going to be giving away one of our 8Mo Army avatars. The winner this week is Easy Sniper at Rugila88. Congratulations. Send us a DM and we'll make sure to get you your prize. And then we have 5 minutes left, so we'll wrap up on a final question for everyone. So I thought everybody could just share what some of your best examples that you've seen of AI being used in Web3 are. And anybody can jump in.
I guess I'll start because I was I was actually pretty fascinated by what you guys are building, John, at NeoSwap. It hasn't, I haven't been able to play with it yet, but the concept is so interesting. So I think that the idea of using AI to solve liquidity is extremely interesting, and I mean, I also think that what interestingly enough, I'm glad we picked such a good panel, but. What you guys are building at Irreverent Labs is I think going to be crucial to how the metaverse develops and this potential to rapidly accelerate actual quality world building in the future with the limited resources that the space currently has. I think there's only so many studios with 3D artists who are capable, and if those studios alone need to build the metaverse for every brand and retailer that wants to enter, I think that's going to be extremely difficult. So I think we have two really good examples here today of how AI is being used in the Web3 space. I guess I pay a lot of attention to this, and I haven't seen a ton of use cases right now that have really, set me and said, "Wow, this is incredible." I've heard a lot of great ideas, and so what I think is happening is we're really in the development phase, and AI is just now people are starting to really focus on potential implementations into this space. So, but I'm glad I got exposed to these two in the last couple of weeks because I think this is really what we need to see in the AI space.
I think a little biased what we're building only because I see it every day. So, obviously I'm excited about it, and we'll see how it goes. But it's kind of an experiment coming up with a game where you don't actually have a controller. Like it's weird, but it is a lot of fun, and creating the tools along the way is interesting. We're always seeing new things every day, so and learning new things all the time. So yeah, I'm really excited about what we're building as well. Thanks.
Yeah, and I just to kind of agree with that. I think that you're going to have AI hitting every layer. We're a little bit more at the economic layer, the kind of transactions. I think you're going to have AI on the user-facing side. I think that there definitely are great examples on this panel of using AI at different points, in the consumer journey. Yeah, and I think we're also going to find over the next 2 to 3 years examples that we would never have thought of. becoming commonplace. I think it's an extremely exciting time. I mean, we are very lucky to be alive at this moment in time when this AI revolution is happening. I mean, think about it. All the people that have been alive ever, we get to be the people that are alive at this moment in time. It's very exciting.
I couldn't agree more. I think that's amazing.
All right, and so I think we are going to wrap up. It's reaching the hour mark, so I just want to be mindful of everybody's time. I do want to open the floor in case there are any, last thoughts from our panelists or anything that might be coming up, or things that our viewers should be paying attention to. I do want to say, please make sure to check out our panelists. Look into Irreverent Labs and Mecha Fight Club, into NeoSwap, and into Satoshiverse if you're not already familiar. We definitely do our best to bring in what we consider to be some of the most interesting and forward-looking, companies and projects in the space for these particular topics. So anyone who comes up here are definitely people we're interested in, and we would recommend you checking out. So definitely check them out, and I'll just say thank you to everyone on the panel who joined, and to everyone in the community who's here. But I'll shut up now, and I'll let you guys say anything if you have anything you want to close with, and then we'll sign off.
I guess I have a minor question to John, which is about what you were saying about like the job displacement and how, of course, for the third world countries, it can bring a ton of good things, like you can optimize crop management or create an education system that evolves around AI and these things that are going to technify the population within time. But my question is, like, my only concern, which might be because I'm brainwashed by the Western narrative, is sort of how do you think that those countries are going to keep up with I think the pace is extremely fast in which AI is sort of evolving, and do you think that people are going to be fast enough to technify themselves, or those countries are going to be able to technify their population fast enough to sort of keep up with how fast AI is evolving?
Well, I think that sometimes when a new technology comes along, it can be good because of leapfrogging, where it isn't necessary to pass through the old steps. And if you have a technology like prompting that lets people easily be productive, which is you don't have to learn. For example, all the no-code solutions that are coming from AI, I think that will be good for less developed, for the developing world. I think that's going to allow people to very quickly create apps that I think it's going to unleash a lot of creativity around the world. So I mean, obviously this is a huge topic, and we've got like 1 minute left. But I expect it to be a net positive. And I think maybe in a follow-up conversation, or if you're interested, we could talk offline. I have a lot to say on this topic, but I think we've pretty much run out of time. I would say, though, it will be a net positive. That would be my prediction.
Yeah, I agree. That's awesome. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much to everyone who joined. We're going to close up now, but really, again, please do check out all the panelists, and thank you to everyone who joined, and we will see you next week for another episode of The Hideout. Thanks, everyone, and have a good rest of your week.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks.